Ethan, a young man with a knack for electronics, needed a job. He found an opening for a night security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The place had a reputation. It was run down, closed for years. Still, the pay was decent. Ethan accepted the offer, ready to face whatever awaited him. He wasn't prepared for the nightmare to come.
This place feels like it's got a story. I can feel it.
Ethan arrived at the pizzeria on his first night. The air felt heavy, thick with the smell of dust and decay. The once vibrant colors of the walls were now faded. The cartoon characters on the walls seemed to watch him with hollow eyes. A shiver ran down his spine as he entered the security office. This place had a story. He could feel it. The security office was small and cramped. A single desk sat in the center, cluttered with papers and an outdated computer system. Two doors, one on each side of the room, led into the darkened hallways of the pizzeria. The only light came from the flickering security monitors stacked on the desk.
All right, just watch the cameras, preserve power, and don't let anything leak. Simple enough, right?
Ethan sat down, the chair creaking under his weight. He took a deep breath, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling that washed over him. His instructions were simple. Watch the cameras, preserve power, and don't let anything leave the building. Simple enough, he thought, until he saw them, the animatronics. The first night passed without incident. The animatronics, frozen on stage in their lifeless poses, remained still. Ethan watched the cameras, his apprehension slowly replaced by boredom. The only sounds were the hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional groan of the old building settling.
Maybe those stories were just rumors. These things are just empty shells.
As the night wore on, Ethan started to question the stories. The flickering lights, the strange shadows, it all seemed like tricks of the mind. The animatronics, he convinced himself, were just empty shells, harmless in their inactivity. He finished his shift, feeling a mixture of relief and disappointment. The night had been uneventful, too uneventful. The second night began much like the first. The silence, however, was different. It wasn't the peaceful silence of an empty building. It felt expectant, charged with an unseen energy.
Why do I feel like I'm being watched?
Ethan's eyes darted between the monitors, his earlier confidence shaken. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Then he saw it, a slight movement on the stage. Freddy, the bear, had shifted his position. Ethan blinked, unsure if what he was seeing was real. He rewound the footage, his heart pounding in his chest. There was no mistaking it. Freddy had moved. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Ethan's exhaustion. The animatronics weren't as lifeless as he thought.
The third night arrived, and the fear that had been simmering within me now boiled over. The animatronics were no longer content to stay on stage.
He watched in horror as they moved through the pizzeria, their movements jerky and unnatural. Each flicker on the screen, each staticky hiss from the monitors sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. They were getting closer. Ethan could feel it. He slammed doors, using precious power to keep the creatures at bay. Their presence was overwhelming. He could almost smell their musty fur, hear the whirring of their servos just outside the door. He was trapped in a terrifying game of cat and mouse, and he was running out of time. By the fifth night, Ethan was a shell of his former self. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, darted between the monitors. The constant fear had taken its toll, leaving him jumpy, paranoid. He could feel the pizzeria closing in around him, its presence suffocating.
I was losing the battle. The power was draining faster than I could replenish it. The doors, my only defense, wouldn't hold much longer. I was trapped, with nowhere to go.
The animatronics were relentless, their pursuit driven by an unseen force. Ethan knew, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that he wasn't going to make it. The power flickered, plunging the office into darkness. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, his heart hammering against his ribs. He could hear them now, closer than ever, their metal limbs clanging against the floor just outside the door. Then silence. A mechanical whirring filled the air, and a pair of glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness. Freddy. His presence filled the room, a tangible wave of dread. Ethan cowered back, his body trembling uncontrollably. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the inevitable. But instead of the sharp pain he expected, he felt a strange numbness spreading through his body.
I opened my eyes, confused, and gasped. My vision was blurry, but I could see them. The other animatronics, their eyes glowing, were staring at me, not with malice, but with a strange sense of welcome. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I looked down at my hands, but all I saw were metal claws.
Ethan realized with a growing sense of horror that he wasn't going to die. He was going to become one of them.